Ladies and gentlemen, we will now move ahead to the next session, which is themed Financing the Silver Economy on Senior Care. And I would like to request Dr. Harsh Mahajan, Senior Vice President, Nat Health and Founder and Chief Radiologist, Mahajan Imaging, to moderate this panel. Very briefly, we'll take a look at his profile. He's been introduced before. And let me also introduce the esteemed experts. All right, so.
Thank you.
Okay, let me introduce Ms. Nanki Singh, CEO and MD, Genesis Rehab Services, who's been a part of the financial services industry in various roles in India and abroad for over a decade. She previously worked for the Royal Bank of Canada, CIBC, and Religare Financial Services, and then moved on to establishing a boutique transaction advisory firm specializing in healthcare. Welcome, ma'am. We also have with us Mr. Pawan Chaudhary, who is the CEO and MD of Bygone India and Chairman MTI. He, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, is the MD of Bygone India, which is a best-selling, a leading French MNC in healthcare. And Mr. Chaudhary is a best-selling author and a public intellectual. He's the chairman of the Medical Technology Association of India, a trustee on the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Memorial Trust, and independent director with TransAsia Biomedicals Limited, and advisor to Executive Access and India Vision Foundation. Welcome, Mr. Chaudhary, and once again, a very warm welcome to you, Dr. Mahajan. My privilege to hand over the proceeding of this session to you.
Thank you very much, Aishwarya, and a warm welcome to my two eminent panelists. And we are going to be discussing something which, with the way the families used to be in India, and I say used to be, probably this was not so much of a problem. But with the newer generation, and new when I say it may be in the last 30 years, the Indian family has changed like it did in the West. And with nuclear families come their own issues. And we are not getting any younger. In fact, we are all getting older, living longer, working longer. And for this, we have to blame or credit the healthcare industry of our country, which from lowly life expectancy of 38 years at independence, we are now close to 70 years. Now, there are a lot of people in this world, nearly 1 billion, who are above the age of 60, and this is likely to double by 2050. So this is something which we need to remember. And as someone has said, the aging population is one of the most important trends in the world. And it's a powerful force, not just socially, but economically. Bill Novelli. If we look at this, then the silver economy, as it's come to be known, covers a host of different but interlinked strands. Together, these can improve the quality of life and inclusion in society and involvement in the economic activity of the aging population through developing innovative policies, products, and services to meet their needs, bringing more growth, more jobs, and providing the elderly with excellent quality of the life that they have. And we need to remember that when we look around us, someone living up to 90 years of age is not unusual, especially in the metros and also in the rural areas where probably the environment is better. So to throw more light on this topic, we have these two eminent panelists. And first, I would like to go to Mr. Pawan Chaudhary to share his views of the problems that exist. And we know some of them. The aging have problem of sitting, doing nothing, whereas they can be gainfully employed still. Then there are the health issues with the aging population, also neurocognitive issues, Alzheimer's disease, which we believe we don't have much in this country. We are recognizing more and more. And how to, even the issue of companionship is a major issue. Can there be someone who can take them out to the mall to see a movie? All of those issues. Over to you, Mr. Chaudhary, for your thoughts on this. And then we will go to Ms. Nanki Singh.
Okay, so that was a beautiful preamble which Dr. Mahajan said. And he alluded to the fact that longevity is a fundamental hallmark of human progress. However, it comes with lot of side effects also. He also said that alluded to the fact that industrialization may have brought in lot of advantages, but the family structures changed. Women started working. Women used to be caregivers for elderly people. Mobility increased, and now the situation of the elderly is not as it used to be in our scriptures. So there are three kinds of problems which they are facing today. First is, of course, the physical problem, where not only there is physical deterioration, but the course of disease in elderly is atypical. It is often multi-pathology, and the hemostatic systems are also impaired, so that and which makes minor therapeutic errors much more damaging than they were in their youth. The second part is the socio-psychological issues or challenges which they face. Every society values its elders based on their usefulness and the value system of the society. The usefulness of elders in some respects has gone down, and the value system of the society needs to be probed further, because there is a lot of gap between what is professed and what is practiced. Dr. Mahajan also referred to ageism, alluded to it. Though the aged have lot of strengths, like they can keep their ego aside while working with people. They can assimilate large bodies of work, interdisciplinary work. They are very good for supervising, strategizing, long-term thinking. But there is a negative stereotyping which does not allow them to come back into the mainstream of work and find busyness. This leads to loneliness, depression, dementia, alienation. This was the socio-psychological side. Coming to the most important side, as far as this topic is concerned, Khalil Gibran has said, when the father gives to the son, both are happy. When the son gives to the father, both are unhappy. This may not apply universally, but it is largely applicable to what is happening today. The rising lifespans have made old parents living with also quite sufficiently old kids. So there is a sandwich generation which has to look after its parents also and its kids also, and no prizes for guessing who would they focus more on. The willingness to invest on parents is a wide spectrum. You see in this willingness, all families are not equally wanting to invest on parents. Then there is fraud which happens on elderly people by a close relative or friend. Then there is insufficient savings, and the interest rates are also lowering. Healthcare costs are increasing. And despite all that I said that the elderly can bring to the job market, there is a negative stereotyping. So there are a lot of challenges on the financial front, and elderly poverty is increasing like anything. In MTI and in other associations, we have done surveys. The elderly are really a large portion of them are moving towards destitution. This is where I would like to leave it. And thank you for bringing me back, Nanki, before you. Let me ask you, with Dr. Mahajan's permission, that
Please go ahead.
you are so strongly invested in this space. What are the ways out to find the finances for elderly care, as well as to find finances for companies which are offering services in elderly care. Nanki.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary. So, as you covered the fact, the kind of problems that seniors face very well. I would like to cover it from a completely subacute perspective. Um, exactly the way you said, there is active medical help that they need, which they get easily, not so easily, but they still have access to it. The subacute space, a post-event space, um, the memory care issues, the rehabilitation, the social aspect of it, the family aspect of it, which is really completely funded and very difficult to get our arms around in today's state. You know, as simple as the government tried, and as way back in 1992, to think about some sort of a financial support for seniors under the National Policy of Older People. They tried to get some health and security for them. Clearly not enough. In 2007, again, they tried to legislate an act called Senior Citizens Act, where it was mandatory for the kids to take care of their seniors. Again, it did fall short. They are trying again in April 2020. So to give the government a clue, I think they are trying to put almost what we have 10 to 12% of the country's population at center stage in the upcoming years, because this population is going to increase to 20% in the next 20 years. But as we do that, I think what we need to focus on is how are we going to pay for it? There is no insurance that covers subacute segments. There is absolutely no way that they have the most people have the ability to be able to cover various types of care settings. So there's one part of it on who is going to pay for them. The second part of it is who is going to, how are companies going to provide these services, because these are not profit making services to be that can just go up and so this needs long-term capital, and somebody has to have the ability to be able to take those losses and cover those losses from a perspective of being able to provide the right kind of care to these people. And that's why I think funding these companies is very, very important as well. So I'm just going to pick up the first aspect first. What is it that we can do to help people pay for these services? Definitely insurance products that need to get introduced. I am personally against umbrella insurance products because I don't think they can cover every aspect of what a senior citizen needs. A senior citizen needs something as simple as assisted living, to a long-term care facility, or to long-term care, to memory care, which covered Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and dementia, right? All of that. Um, moving on to the social aspect of it. All of this, what's supposed to be covered in specific type of packages, need to be great. Secondly, I think there is some amount of tax breaks that the government needs to give, some kind of mandatory pension contributions that need to come in. So as these people grow old, where is the social security provided to them, right? Um, we are, we are a very, very nascent as far as servicing our seniors is concerned, even from a services perspective. Uh, uh, we are just about getting into providing community living for people who are healthy and want to live actively in their senior years. Again, I'm not even touching the bottom of the pyramid, and we have to touch that. I'm talking about population that is able to pay for themselves, right? To some extent through real estate providers who provide community living to take care of the social aspect of it. Then what beyond that? Who provides those services, right? Because it is a continuous care requirement for seniors as they move from 60 onwards all the way till their golden years and the dawn and the dusk of their life, right? To provide those services, it's a catch-22. They don't have the ability to pay. If they don't pay, the company who provides those services doesn't make money. If they don't make money, they don't provide the kind of care settings, and then the services won't come. And then that further, I think that furthers the weight on hospitalizations, on medical care, a lot of things can be taken care of outside the hospital. As simple as, you have a cardiac surgery, post that you have to have some sort of rehabilitation. You have a stroke. There is rehabilitation that is available out there world over, and our company does that as well, provided somebody understands that you can take it, provided somebody has the ability to pay for it, right? Provided the government understands that it'll really help a person lead their life in the most active way possible if the person is given the right kind of therapy post an event. Um, where, memory care issues, we can't stop these diseases from coming in, but we can definitely slow them down. We can continuously ensure that these people who are facing these issues get the right kind of, it's not symptom management alone, but these people get the right kind of care, whether it's diet and nutrition, whether it's social engagement, whether it's mental, enhancing the mental capability, and downsizing and downgrading the effect of these diseases is important. So in a nutshell, I would say financing needs to be taken very seriously on both aspects. There has to be long-term patient capital that needs to come in. Private equity needs to play a large role. Government needs to be able to provide some support. You have to have the entire framework worked out in a manner where it supports the silver economy, whether it's as simple as providing manpower, or it's as simple as training people to take up a career as a geriatrician, or a nursing assistant who wants to specialize in geriatrics, making that a lucrative career. So money and finances flow in from all aspects, right? And I would think that everybody has to work in tandem to get this going.
Thank you very much, Nanki. Pawan, we do have a few minutes left. Now, what could be innovative ways that both the the elderly as well as those who want to provide care to the elderly can raise financing, can find the money so that both of them actually have a win-win situation where the elderly are taken care of well, and it's not just their healthcare needs. There's much more to it, and also it is sustainable in the long term for the startup or whichever organization wants to work in this field.
I think that's a great question. First of all, I think we need to clear the mist around our glasses. Both by what you said and by what Nanki Singh ji said, silver economy is not a silver economy. It is a tin economy. Golden years are not golden years. They are brass years at best. So the fact that the elders are doing very well, or we as a society have scriptural values which value elders, and we are still following those, that pretense or that illusion should go. Then we come to the points which you are raising, Dr. Mahajan. I feel that the insurance piece which Nanki spoke of, as well as the support from the government, at least through tax breaks, etc., is vital. Insurance of home healthcare is also very vital, because home healthcare is a small proportion of the total cost of home healthcare, is a small fraction of hospital healthcare. And regarding the funds, so surely there are impact funds, but other funds are also coming into being. You might have heard of Loomis Partners. This is a middle-sized fund which has invested in two path-breaking ventures, Imoha and Epoch. Let me just tell you what Imoha is. Imoha is a community of elders and of those people who care for them. And this is a digital community for emergency response, for socialization, etc. And the price of joining this community, I think, is only 1,000 rupees per month. And for 12 months, or for 1 month, it has a free trial. So such kind of funds or such kind of ventures should be seen and targetedly supported. There is another organization which came to my mind as Nanki was speaking about rehabilitative care. Why should a patient who has undergone surgery convalesce in the hospital, which is very expensive, and the hospital is also losing money on his staying there during convalescing time? So there is an organization called Kites, which is started by a serial entrepreneur in the field of healthcare, and they have these step up and step down facilities where people can convalesce or before going for surgery decide whether there are other proven remedies to avoid those surgeries. This will also reduce costs, and these are the kind of investors, etc., who are supported. So, plus the likes of TPGs and capital partners, etc., are already doing a lot of work in this area. They should be brought to the doors of such companies through leaders like you and Nanki, so that they know that there are organizations working to reduce the financial burden on patients, and these will also earn a good return, because investors will not go into places where there is only good to be done. They want to do well also. They are very clear about the fact that we cannot continue feeding from an empty vessel. We have to bring such vessels to them which are helping the poor elder as well as still making some good return. Dr. Mahajan.
It does appear that there is a very urgent need to look after those who are 60 years and above for their healthcare needs, as well for their social needs. And towards that end, if we can make them productive, it will add to even the GDP of countries where they are. And India, which today has the dividend that we are a young generation, 20 years down the line, this dividend is going to actually lead us to a situation where the elderly above 60 will number more than those below 15. So we need to focus on this. Both the government as well as the private sector need to think about it, bring about innovative change, bring about such instruments that the young, those above 60 can be helped to lead a very fruitful life where they continue to give to society, but also receive the respect that they deserve. So thank you very much, Pawan and Nanki, for joining this. And I'm sure we will hear much more about this in the years to come. Over to you, Aishwarya.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a very, very crucial and pertinent session, I think, knowing about the silver economy, how we can finance it, specifically with regards to senior care. Now, of course, there is one more thing that you have to do, Dr. Mahajan, and that is the conclusion of this entire session, the financing of healthcare. I'm going to request you to please do it in under 10 minutes, if that's possible.
No. I'll do it quicker. Thank you very much. Now, some of the points that were made during the 3 panel discussions that we've had on financing of healthcare, it was, I can tell you, very exciting. So many new things that I heard, that I learned. And the first was that there needs to be vertical as well as horizontal integration in healthcare. And also underlined by the fact that even today, we have very small provider groups, unlike what we've seen in the developed parts of the world. And so there is need for large provider groups, because that may be able to address the challenge of access of quality and also affordability. There is need for insurance to start from a younger age, because that's how it would be able to sustain those who need the healthcare, tertiary, quaternary care. There is need for insurance coverage for outpatient, because if that is provided and if people at the early stage of the disease are able to go to outpatient covered by insurance, probably they may not need to be admitted. Their disease could be treated right at the early stage, and that may lead to lower costs across the entire continuum. There is something which was very important, which was brought out, that quality may be expensive, but quality is king. And it is imperative to provide high quality services if you want to succeed in the healthcare field, especially in competitive markets in metros. Also, the thought process that we've seen in the last few years, especially when one refers to those at the lower end of the socio-economic spectrum, that something is better than nothing. Probably this mindset has to change, because rich or poor, they deserve quality healthcare, they deserve certain standard of healthcare, and this mindset across the whole society needs to change, that this was someone who was getting nothing, at least we are able to give him something. No, we need to give him quality care. Then public-private partnership, and the same problems came forth, lack of trust between the two. So I would say that with a lot of emphasis, that there is a need for independent, transparent, well-researched costing exercise where the private sector sits with the public sector along with the experts in this field, who can actually tell us how much is it that bypass surgery costs, or how much is it that a gallbladder surgery costs, or an asthma treatment cost, or for that matter, COVID-19 treatment costs. This is something which we still don't know. Some exercise has been done in bits and pieces over the last many years, but no one is sitting on the same side of the fence and willing to agree to the costing that one or the other side may give. And this, if done dispassionately, will be able to actually remove to a large extent the trust deficit that exists between the private sector, the public sector, as well as the patients. Then a study for delivery of healthcare services is a must. It's the elephant in the room. The costing study needs to be done. Need for primary preventive care, and this may be provided through health and wellness clinics, but as yet, we've not seen much happening on the ground. And in the coming months, we'll know how this whole scenario is going to unfold. There is also, it was outlined, great need for private capital and to leverage private capital to provide universal health care. Also, I would say that there is an urgent need to demonstrate that a typical Ayushman Bharat hospital can be financially viable at the current rates that are provided by the NHA. If this can be done, then this would go a long way in bringing capital into this market, because as we see, most of the large tertiary and quaternary care hospitals have chosen not to become part of Ayushman Bharat. There is need to transition from supply to the demand side, and through PMJ, focus on the lower end. The government spend needs to increase. It may not be possible to provide healthcare to the 500 million underprivileged in $1 billion. So focus also, though, should remain on access, but should equally be on quality. It is only through economics of the reimbursement model that it will lead to expansion, but that may not be the only thing that does it. Can volumes moderate cost without compromising quality and not ending up in litigation? This is again something we need to see. And another point which was emphasized was that there should be a level playing field between public and private, leaving the choice of where to go with the consumer. It is not just the private labs which should need to be NABL accredited. Equally, it should be the government labs. Insurance products need to evolve. Affordable products should be there to open up a huge untapped market. There needs to be standardization of healthcare costs, and that will come through the costing exercise. And there should be a healthy platform where the payers and the providers can interact. Evidence-based treatment models need to be developed, and there should be outcome-based reimbursement. And then finally, emphasis on digital health. And can India leapfrog? If any country can do it, the underlying sentiment was India can do it through telehealth, through artificial intelligence, through the huge information technology infrastructure and capability that we have in our country. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank everyone who participated, and for the large audience that we know is viewing this. Thank you all very much, and we hope to keep the momentum going. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mahajan, for sharing the key learnings from this very impactful and important session. And I have to say thank you for beginning the session on financing of healthcare on such a high note and bringing it to a very conclusive end. Thank you, sir.